I don't know if this would be a good time to go into like the symptoms of my MS because they were pretty drastic. It was a lot. So this person, she had originally, before the MRI and before I saw the ophthalmologist, she was the one who told me that it could all be in my head and that it was all possibly just anxiety and just depression that was causing all these symptoms, which I thought she was crazy. Turns out she was wrong. I have the MS hug that starts to make an appearance, and even to this day, it's one of the symptoms that I still struggle with. One of my worst symptoms, it was always one of my worst symptoms. And the MS hug, for anyone who doesn't know, it's not as pleasant as it sounds. It's really not. There's nothing nice. Hugs are supposed to be nice. There ain't nothing nice about this. It's where you feel like you can't breathe very well. So I was diagnosed finally with MS on June 28th of 2017. And it was a great day for me, that diagnosis day. Like, obviously, like I cried and I had to sort of deal with this idea of having a new reality pushed over me. I think that spark was that realization right there. It was that realization that I am who I am. This is what my life is going to be. So I may as well try to make something of it at this point because I'm not doing anything just sitting around staring at my art supplies. For me, it makes perfect sense. Like, my head is going to keep wanting to dig its little hole deeper into the depths of my mind. And if I don't do something to stop it, it's going to remain in motion and it's going to remain trying to put me at a lower, darker place, so to speak. And doing other things to disrupt that pattern helps a whole lot.
Like we talked about, like the hardest step is accepting it. And it's like people don't accept it and then they expect to be better. But if you can't do the first step, you're just going to fall apart. If you have like 5 people, solid people in your life, you're really lucky. I get where you're coming from. I feel like it's actually toxic to be part of the chronic ill community because, yeah, okay, here we go. We're gonna explore this.
Maybe I have like other people not being quite at the same level as you.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of something my mom would always tell us, actually, when we were growing up. She was always like, she would always tell us that she'll be there to help us no matter what it is. She's always going to be there for us,
Yeah.
sisters. But we have to beat her. We have to meet her at 100%. And then, anyway, back to the painting.
Yeah.
I'm almost finished.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Mics One JoeySooch. I am Joe Sooch. I'll be giving a mic and paintbrush to Hannah. Hannah has multiple sclerosis and bouts of depression and artist block. This episode will be different. Hannah is a teacher in art and painting and drawing, and a non-licensed therapist mixed in. This will be different where I wanted Hannah to paint something she likes and to talk about herself. Are you ready to talk about yourself?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so let's walk us what you'll be doing today.
Yeah, okay. So normally I am a teacher. That's what I do. So today I'm going to be something that's a little bit more for me. So I have this huge canvas here, and I don't even know what size it is, but I love the style, I mean the shape of it. So I want to actually do a mixed media painting. I'm going to be using this heavy gel media, and I'm going to be putting it on there using palette knives. So you can see I have some palette knives right here. And then once that's all dry, I'm going to put some alcohol inks right on top of it. So it's going to be in a similar vein to this painting right here of my puffer fish. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but he's sort of hidden under the water right up here at the top. And I chose to paint my pufferfish because I had him for 14 years. Pets are a huge portion of my life, and it's sort of a running joke that I have a zoo in my apartment. And my pufferfish, he was very aptly named Puffy. And so I'd like to honor him since he recently passed away about 2 weeks ago at 14 years old. I've had him that whole time, so I'm going to honor him with another painting because I very often paint him. And in fact, I have a bunch of little mementos of him back there.
Well,
So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing.
now
Do
Molly
you
the
have any
spider.
questions, Joe? I'm a teacher, so I the spider. So that's the spider. That's Molly, not a real spider, but I've named her Molly, and she's got a little baby somewhere down there. I don't know if you guys can see the baby.
Oh,
Baby's unnamed right yet,
okay.
so right now. So if you have name suggestions, I'm all ears.
Let's do I like Selena. Let's do Selena.
Selena. Okay, her name is Selena. Her mother is Molly.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, that's
There you go.
that's what's up. So would
Hmm.
you like to start drawing, or should I start asking questions as you go along?
I was diagnosed with MS in
I
2017.
have
This
here
was
you would.
around 6 months or so.
I have here you were diagnosed on June 28th, 2017.
Hmm. Yeah, June 28th, 2017. And I felt like, well, if I'm having to go through all of these physical symptoms that are tearing me down, maybe I should start thinking about my mental health too. I don't know if this would be a good time to go into like the symptoms of my MS because they were pretty drastic. It was a lot.
Yeah, so let's kind of back up a little bit. So it's have here that you were actually developing symptoms in college, and you kind of just didn't do anything about it. You just thought maybe it was a cold or a flu
Yeah,
or just
let's.
some strange phenomenon. So like, how did so I have here the symptoms included your rib cage being feeling, I guess feeling that they were crushed and a weight on your chest.
Mhm. Yeah, we can backtrack to all that. I think that's a good idea. So I'll go back to college then. So let's see. When I was in college, I did develop my first symptoms of MS, and they were very subtle. Like, I remember being dizzy as I was walking through the hallways and walking outside, especially. I would be dizzy, I'd get really lightheaded, and I'd have to sit down and sort of get my bearings again. And by this point, I want to say this was maybe 2012, 2013 or something. By this point, my thought was that I'm probably just stressed because I'm going to graduate soon
Yeah.
with my undergraduate degree. This is probably normal. Like the way,
Mhm.
like this, how I rationalized it in my head. I was like, this is just normal stuff. I'm sure. I'm sure of it.
Mhm.
So I would just have to sit down every once in a while. I remember at some point my vision becoming pretty bad. My vision, and honestly, I when I thought about my vision and how I would have to like squint a little bit to like read things. No, I didn't have to squint. It was looking at things from far away that they were blurry. That's what it was. I just remember thinking, oh, it's probably my time to get glasses because most of the females in my family have glasses. So I was
Mhm.
just like, okay, it's just my turn now. So I went to an ophthalmologist and went through that whole routine. And it was very like cut and dry for that ophthalmologist. There was really no room for me to talk about my symptoms, nothing. And so she'd even told me at some point that I would probably have to come back to her to get my lenses adjusted. So I just said yes because I'm in college. I'm in my early 20s at this point
Yeah.
and I don't know what I'm doing with life. So And so, yeah, I did that. But the weird thing was that the glasses sometimes helped me, but sometimes they didn't help me. But sometimes they would help me in one eye, but
Huh.
not the other eye.
That's
So it
so
was just a
strange.
weird thing. And because I, yeah, it was weird. And with MS, we it's very common for people who have MS to develop something called optic neuritis. And it's exactly that. It's where your myelin nerves are destroyed, your optic nerves are destroyed by the MS. And so I didn't realize that that's what was happening because I didn't know anything about MS.
Mhm.
Um, I was just, concerned with college. And I wore these glasses. It was pretty silly of me, but I wore these glasses for about 3 years after I got them, despite the fact that sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't work in one eye. So I was just too concerned with pummeling through my life to really even just address something that's literally right there on my face.
Yeah, you have so much
So I
shit to
didn't
worry
address
about.
it. Yeah, exactly. I have so much shit to worry about. Why am I going to worry about changing my glasses? So I just pummeled through life that way. And,
Developing symptoms with
well,
heaviness of chest and then tightness of ribs.
oh, yes. Yes. Well, in addition to that, there was even an entire year, a year, where I had migraines either every day or every other day, and no insurance to do anything about this. No insurance. I was just under the impression that, oh, this is just what it's like to become older. I think at that point I was graduated from college by the time the migraines came along. So I was just like, okay, this is what it means to be older now. So I didn't do anything about the migraines, but it was a very painful year. I had even, right after college, I remember experiencing symptoms of heat intolerance. So basically, I was very, very sensitive to heat and didn't even realize that I was sensitive to heat. I just had noticed that one year was better than another in regards to how I was handling the heat outside. And I thought I was crazy. I just thought, okay, this is a weird thing, but I'm sure it's normal. I'm just going to go about living my life. I'm sure this is all just fine. And this is making me think of that one meme with the dog in a burning background. That
Yeah.
was me at some point. I was like, this is all just fine. And it wasn't really fine. Guys, get help. Get help when you feel like you need it. At this point, my ophthalmologist and my PCP, they consult with each other. And my PCP tells me that it could possibly be MS and that she wants to get me a brain MRI and she wants to refer me to a neurologist. So this doctor, I didn't really trust in her word. Um, I'm always a big advocate now of switching doctors anytime you don't feel comfortable with a certain person. So this person, she had originally, before the MRI and before I saw the ophthalmologist, she was the one who told me that it could all be in my head and that it was all possibly just anxiety and just depression that was causing all these symptoms, which I thought she was crazy. turns out she was wrong. It was something more than that. So anyway, I opted to go look for another PCP and with him, and so I got into the neurology. I guess it's like a practice, like it's all one healthcare system, I guess. And so I was really lucky to be able to get into that healthcare system. And just so everyone knows, or I'm going to be putting alcohol ink on the rest of this now. Going back to that, at, at a certain point, between a whole bunch of my doctor's visits, I had gone to see a foot specialist. I went to go see the retina specialist, a rheumatologist, and there's probably one or two others that I'm forgetting. So at that point, I still have developing symptoms. So I have the MS hug that starts to make an appearance. And even to this day, it's one of the symptoms that I still struggle with. One of my worst symptoms, it was always one of my worst symptoms. And the MS hug, for anyone who doesn't know, it's not as pleasant as it sounds. It's really not. There's nothing nice. Hugs are supposed to be nice. There ain't nothing nice about this. It's where you feel like you can't breathe very well. You feel like something's choking you. And so that's how I felt. I felt like something was like choking my rib cage, but then also sitting on my chest. And so it's just a strange, strange feeling. And I remember at this point, when I was feeling symptoms of the MS hug, I remember thinking, this is really weird. There's no way that this is like a normal thing for me to experiencing. for me to be experiencing. And at this point, I was just so sad and so, what's the word? I was so sad and so
Melancholic?
depressed all the time. What was that?
Melancholic?
Melancholic. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All the time. Like that was my default setting at this time. Just no happy Hannah, just very melancholic. So I was just dealing with one day, one at a time, or every day, one at a time, I should say. And I just remember thinking, I've got to put a spin on this. I've got to like be able to look at things a different way. Otherwise, I'm just going to drown in my own sorrow. And I remember thinking that, way before my diagnosis, I needed to take a hold of this mentally. So I started to think about my MS hug as I started envisioning this little pink elephant that was just like really, really dense and really tiny and heavy, like a pink elephant just sitting on top of my chest. And every time I would laugh, this little pink elephant would laugh right there along with me, like an unwanted guest that was just always there. Because I had to like visually put an image to it, because otherwise I was just going to go crazy. So I did. I just had this little pink elephant living on top of my chest, and I would imagine that crushing sensation around my rib cage. I would imagine that that's kind of like a face hugger, but it's like it's on my rib cage, like in the back. So it's a face hugger, and I've got like a big elephant on me at all times. So I had to like from very early on sort of figure out how to put a spin on this disease. So I did. I mean, I was still pretty sad about everything, but it helped, it at least put a smile on my face to be able to imagine those things. Basically they were like unwanted intruders, living on me rent free. So there's that. And then at a certain point I was very fatigued too. Like I finally understood what the word fatigue really meant. Because, you can say you're tired, especially if you're tired all the time, but there's really nothing that compares it to fatigue.
Is this before you were diagnosed or after you were diagnosed?
Before I was diagnosed. Like everything that I'm talking about, these are all thoughts that came to me before I was diagnosed.
Okay.
So I guess I was diagnosed. I guess like moving forward, I was very slowly increasing in symptoms. Like my symptoms would get worse, and I was just having to deal with them without any sort of help. And as far as the mental issues were concerned, I think I touched on it a little bit when I said that I had to imagine these weird things happening to me, like the pink elephant. But I was starting to see that because I was having to deal with all the physical symptoms, my mental symptoms started become, or I'm sorry, my mental health status started to become more important to me. Eventually, I just sort of thought that if I'm addressing my physical symptoms, then maybe I should start addressing my mental symptoms. So that's an ongoing process that just sort of took a while to develop, over the years. I was diagnosed finally with MS in on June 28th of 2017, and it was like it was a great day for me. That diagnosis day, like obviously, like I cried and I had to sort of deal with this idea of having a new reality pushed over me. But it was the day when I finally found some direction. I found that I had a direction that I could go in, I could get help for my condition. And luckily for me, I was in the top majority of people who get diagnosed with MS. I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. So that's a good thing. There are lots of medications, fortunately, for my version of MS. So I felt very, very lucky to be in that position.
Deal with the physical of getting MS and that's helping you. So, like, how do you deal with the mental now? So, I'm guessing you started going to therapy?
Yeah, so I needed to work on the physical portion, so having to deal with like how do I deal with those symptoms on a day-to-day basis? Actually, this is a good time to talk about my art now and
Okay.
how my art changed. At a certain point, I want to say like maybe 2 months or 3 months after I got diagnosis. So this would have been maybe in like, I don't know, fall of 2017. I decided that I wanted to get back into making art. Because I'd mentioned previously that I stopped doing art in my 20s for the longest time. Once I graduated college, like I hardly did anything. And so I wanted to pick it up again because, and I'm trying to think about like, what was the driving force that made me go back into the studio? And I think I just needed to rediscover myself. I just needed to find more of a purpose. And so I just thought that, you know what, I need to go back into the studio. I need to do something. And at the time where I was living, I know I'd mentioned that I'd had a different boyfriend, and so he actually built me a studio on the property of his parents' house. And so in that studio, I loved that studio, but let me tell you, for it was on a big property and it was far away from the house. So just walking to that studio, it took a lot out of me. I ended up being tired every single time I went out into the studio. It was so exhausting just to walk out there and then have to like sit down, catch my breath, like try to recover myself because I mentioned I'm very heat sensitive. So I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing out here with myself?
Doesn't everybody in Texas drive?
Well, we lived on their property.
Okay.
Yeah, we lived on their property at the time, so I just had to walk outside, like in the sweltering heat,
Hmm.
past the trees, past a bunch of rocks, and then I would get to my studio. But yes, you are right. Everybody in Texas does have to drive. So anyway, I'll just say I probably shouldn't have been driving at certain points way back then before I was diagnosed,
Oh,
but I
really?
survived. So here
Oh,
we are.
I didn't think
Yeah,
it would
because
be that bad.
that's how bad my
Oh,
dizziness
yeah.
was. Yeah, that's really how bad my dizziness was. It was pretty bad. Yeah, not happy to admit it, but it was pretty bad. So anyway, I remember sitting in my studio one point and like I would often stare at things because I didn't know what else to do. Like I didn't have the energy to just pick up my things, my art supplies, and I didn't have the energy to pick them up. I didn't have the mental capacity to even think about what I was going to be drawing or doing that day. I'd mentioned I didn't do art in a serious capacity for a long, long time for most of my 20s.
Yeah, it's crazy that you went to art school and
Huh?
everything, and then you just got, I guess you got burnt out and the depression hit and you just lost interest in everything.
Yeah, well, I was dealing with so much anxiety, you know, even in art school that doing art wasn't fun for me for a while. And I did want to, and I still want to do this. I still want to do resident, actually show my work at galleries. I have shown my work in galleries before, and honestly, it was mostly when I was in school that I showed work in galleries, but I still don't feel like that work is filled with myself and my soul. It was more just doing things because somebody else told me I had to do those things. And I had the skill to do them because I was in school. You know, this is why I was there. I was in art school. But it wasn't really work for me, if that makes sense. So here I am, like, fast forward back to like after diagnosis, trying to figure out where to go with my life and with my diagnosis. And I just kept thinking to myself, you know what? I do a lot of thinking, but I don't do a lot of doing. So why don't I just sort of pick up something and just do whatever? You know, I don't have anything else to lose at that point because I was at my lowest then. I'd hit rock bottom and I didn't have any lower to go, so may as well just not care about
Was
what I
there
did
any
art wise.
was
And
there any
so
spark in your life to make you become full of color again, or was it like kind of a slow process?
I think that spark was that realization right there. It was that realization that I am who I am. This is what my life is going to be. So I may as well try to make something of it at this point because I'm not doing anything just sitting around staring at my art supplies.
I think like to me the biggest thing that helps me out the most is more just not talking about it because I understand like talking about it helps, but after a while it like doesn't anymore. Like I don't complain about anything because it really doesn't help. Okay, like the more you complain and like talk about it, you're extending the thing that you're talking about even more. But like if you start talking about like shows or sports or anything different, you kind of like not talk about it anymore, and you kind of feel better to deal with the situation. Like you're it, like I had my bouts of depression, and I know you can't just snap out of it, but I feel like if you're talking about other things, it will help you not snap out of depression, but just help you get out of the depths of depression to make you feel better,
Uh-huh.
and just you feeling better will help you battle your depression at other moments more because I think like some of the problems is psychological, and I think if you can get out of that mindset, I think it just helps just that because like it can be really dark, but I think just getting
Mm,
because like when I talk to like other people, especially with my disease, like I don't really. I think at the end of the day, you don't really talk about your disease. You talk about normal things anyway, and I think that's what helps the most. Like I rather like call you and talk about art and like maybe like I don't know. Let's say I had like a bad situation and the first 10 minutes we'll be like talking about traumatic thing, and then we'll just talk about like I don't know like other things like I don't know like shoot I don't know like let's say microphones for
like
example.
what?
Yeah, and it'll just be like totally different. But then like after the conversation, like I'll feel better about like I still have my trauma, but I just feel better to it. When you're all sad, like you're not
Mhm.
thinking rationally. So I think to be in a
True.
more positive state helps you think more rationally. And like maybe like this situation that
Yeah,
you
and
were thinking about, maybe you were just being dumb, and maybe you should see it differently, and maybe it's not as big of a deal as you make it seem.
yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Like, at least for me, what helps me to get out of these bouts of depression, I guess, on a daily basis, is if I'm able to get myself into a new situation and sort of start to think about something else. Like, I'll go outside or I'll go and get a coffee from a coffee shop nearby because it helps me to get moving for one, but it also helps me to, my mind is focused on what's in front of me. And what's in front of me could be the coffee shop, it could be the cashier. So I'll, start talking to the cashier, and just in talking to the cashier, I feel better already.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of like, I think I see what you're saying. Like it's kind of like a give and take, so to speak. Like you you do you do the things that sort of get your mind out of that frames that mindset. I know I said give and take. I don't think that's the right way to word it, but um, maybe more like you're jumping from one thing to another for the purpose of like getting you out of that same thinking pattern. I don't know if that makes sense. That actually brings me to a something that helps me to, and still helps me to get my mind off of things. You know how like in physics, and trust me,
I
I'm not a
failed that class.
anyway,
Okay.
I was very close to failing it, but something that stuck out with me is there's a law in physics called that's where like an object in motion stays in motion.
Mhm.
And somebody once told me that the same can be true for your mindset, for the way that you're thinking. And so for me, it makes perfect sense. Like my head is going to keep wanting to dig its little hole deeper into the depths of my mind. And if I don't do something to stop it, it's going to remain in motion and it's going to remain trying to put me at a lower, darker place, so to speak. And doing other things to disrupt that pattern helps a whole lot. And that's actually one of the things that I kept thinking about when I was in my studio, years ago, trying to find myself again, and piece myself back together again using art. I kept thinking about that principle, that scientific principle, and I kept thinking about certain songs would pop into my mind and they would put me back on track, I guess. But yeah, I think that you're right. I think that like we all need distractions, I guess. And for me, art is kind of that distraction from myself and my life.
So I think I kind of think of it the same way as like anxiety. I think anxiety is very human created based. Like we're always thinking of like the scenarios and then like what could happen, and most of the time it doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
like what I did kind of input into my mind that like I'm a very realistic person in terms of like statistics and like facts and such. And so like I apply it to like my medium. I'll be on YouTube and just doing all this, saying all the crazy things. And I'm like, I'm a very physically ugly person, and that's from a scientific standpoint. And like people are gonna say, oh no, you're not, and it's like, yes I am. Like I like to stick to the reality thing. I think that would help me out the most. So like, yes, I am anatomically unpleasant to the eyes of people. Like when people see me, they want to look away, but I also compare myself to like a woman with big titties that they want to look at me, but they don't, but they kind of want to look at me. So like, like they wear sunglasses so they can see, But the analogy is there; it makes sense. And but like I just thought, but like my thinking is that like, yes, I know this, and a lot of people will be like, oh, like how could you go out there and like, while yes, I do have good self-esteem and I still go out anyway. But like I just think of it logically with like, like I was saying the woman with the titties, like let's say you see one walking down the street, like everyone's gonna look at her, like she knows it, we all know it, fine. But like the minute they walk past you, like 30 seconds later, you totally forget about them. And I'm just like,
That's true.
so like you're thinking like, like I think about myself, like I walk past beautiful women all the time. Do I think about them after a minute? No. Like, but in your mind, you're thinking like, oh, for me, it's like, oh, they're thinking of you at dinner time and talking about you all the time. I just go to myself, like, am I talking about that person? No. Do I really care? Well, people are dealing with their own shit, and that's just kind of how I see it in my life, and I just stuck with that logic because that's the one that makes the most sense. And I've been just kind of doing that ever since. So, like, I can go crazy on the podcast, and probably no one can even, no one can watch. There could be like one person that watch to the end of this video, but even I could say like some crazy shit, and no one would be like say or do anything. It's like people care about you, but like 99% of the population just really doesn't care about you or anything you'd say. Like you can say whatever you want, and people will just walk past you, and that's it. Like the moment that you cringe at from when you were younger, I bet maybe one person remembers, but the only person that remembers is you because everyone's living their own lives too and have so much other shit to worry about. And
Yeah.
for you to have the audacity to think that someone
Yeah.
else is thinking of you is like, get over yourself. Like,
Sure.
nah, they got their own shit to worry about and
That's
their
true.
own lives. So that's how I've been going about life, and I think that's a great motto to live by, and I've been kind of happy ever since.
Yeah. And honestly, like we are kind of we might have, family and friends, of course, that care about us, but in the end, we are all alone, pretty much. We all have our shit to deal with that we have to deal with in our own way. And it took for me that diagnosis of MS to become comfortable with being alone and being by myself. You know, of course, I have my family and I have my mom, and she's been a source of comfort for me, but it's put more emphasis on myself and how I view myself. Yeah, so it's taken it took a long time for me to place that importance upon myself, but you're totally right when you say that most people aren't going to be thinking about you when they pass you, you know, on the street. They've got their own shit to deal with. They have their own lives to go back to. So why should you care
Well,
if if they like have any sort of issue with you at all?
I mean, I think like one of the toxic things we're taught when we're younger is like we're all special and stuff. So I think I can understand that helps you with your self-esteem, but I feel like at the same time, I think like in the short term it helps you, but in the long term it really doesn't. And I'm like, you have like a very
Hmm.
like I'm a very different person of the way I handle things, but at the same time I'm also I feel like I'm extremely aware of how good my self esteem is, how good the way I'm able to talk about these things. I think,
Hmm.
and like I'm telling, like I'll literally tell people how like I have dealt with shit, and like they don't follow it, and then they continue to do whatever they've been doing, and it's not working out for them. And like I'm a very like truth teller to people, and like they keep
Mm.
like we talked about like the hardest step is accepting it. And it's like people don't accept it, and then they expect to be better. But if you can't do the first step, you're just gonna fall apart. And and then like the other thing is that people will be like, oh, I need people and stuff. Like I have dealt with, yeah, I had family that like helped me with through my hard times physically and stuff, but mentally I didn't have
Hmm.
anyone. I almost don't have anyone to this day. Like I don't really have, like I have my best friend and she's amazing, but like she doesn't necessarily make me happy. Also, I never really like talked to her about my problems either because, for one, talking about the
Mm.
problem doesn't do anything because there's nothing I can do about it anyway. So I continue that, and two, I don't know anyone that can really. There were like one or two people that did really make me happy and such, and but like they're not no
Hmm.
longer part of my life for toxic reasons or self sabotaging,
Ah,
which is really unfortunate.
yeah.
But most people really can help me, and I've been
Well, that I think that goes along with. No, go ahead.
continue your sentence.
I think that goes along with that idea that kept popping into my head, you know, way back that I was, you know, alone. I'm alone on this planet, and we're all going to eventually be alone in our journeys in one way or another, in the sense that we have to deal with these mental issues that pop up. You know, yes, we can receive help, like you said, from family or from therapists, but in the end, we are the ones who do have to really deal with these issues that we're dealing with. So getting comfortable with the idea of being alone and but also accepting yourself for the way you are, I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
just
because and honestly, I used music. I think music really helped me with a lot of these ideas because I would always listen to songs that other people would consider sad songs, but really they give me energy, they give me life. So I continue to listen to them. They're not Katy Perry or anything, and sometimes I don't understand the lyrics because I'm just listening to the music itself. But yeah, just music has been such a huge way for me to cope with all of these thoughts of being by myself and these thoughts of dealing with my mental health issues in, you know, more productive ways.
yeah, I just stick with like the laws of like reality. I feel like that's the most solid laws to follow because if you follow like religion, it gets messy really quick and you're always justifying and trying to explain everything. And I think it just
Hmm.
gets exhausting and it's like I just stick with the laws of reality. So like another thing is kind of like I like had friends I guess growing up for one is 99% of the people in your life doesn't mean anything to you at all. You know, like I have like 6,000 followers, which is a pretty big deal, but like 99% of them mean nothing to me. Like I'll probably never meet them again. I'll never meet them, even 99% of people that I talk to probably won't be much, like the person that really you care about the most in life is really like, let's say you're at a wedding, so it's like the person you're marrying and then like your bridesmaid or groomsman, whatever side you're on, and like your family, and then the rest is just kind of like noise. And that's really it. Like,
Mm,
if, and it's like reality of things, like if you have like 5 people, solid people in your life, you're really lucky. And then to add to
that is
that,
true.
yeah, and then to add to that, like making friends, the people be like, oh, I want to make friends and stuff. And I just see it that we don't, as adults now, we don't make friends anymore. It's more of like assets to each other. Like what you have to offer something for someone to want it to be with you. So like I grew up being like I have friends here and there and such, but like I've never been invited to parties. I'm not part of group chats. Like I'm never like, hey, what's up? Never like, I'm just like everyone else. It's a follower on Instagram, and like it sucks. But like people, I didn't. Yes, I'm a good guy and I can listen and all these great things, and but I didn't really offer anything that people would want to stay with me. And so I just kind of was like, I had to create value for myself to want. Because like when you talk to other people, they offer something that you want from them. Like you're not just with like you're not like let's say you're dating someone. You're not just dating someone because of like their friendship. Like you can kind of get that with everyone, but like if you enter sex involved, okay, so now the sex is kind of the glue. So like you need to find a glue in a relationship. So like some people have like they'll go to soccer games. So the glue is the soccer games, and then like you hang out because of soccer, then you never talk again. Or it's just you need to find something that keeps you together. Just you being a nice person and courteous, and it will not do anything. Like yeah, people will compliment you and stuff, but it's not a reason for someone to want to be with you. Like there has to be something that
Hmm.
keeps you together, and that's the harsh reality of things. And I see a lot kind of with like the chronic ill community of like, oh, I deserve friends and such. And I'm like, you kind of don't, because like imagine you had a friend that you want to talk to, but like they can't hang out because they can't leave the house, or like, you, I'm sure you're familiar with the spoon theory. Like they don't have enough energy to want to like listen to you and stuff. And like you're kind of explaining what a
Hmm.
bad friend is. Like yes, you can be sympathetic and everything, but like if you can't provide what a friendship is, then you kind of don't deserve friends. And it's like that's the harsh reality of it. Like I've been in that situation where I couldn't be a good friend to someone, and they stopped talking to me. And there was some that did understand, but after a while, like you're just not, you're not just a good friend, and you gotta find that glue. And unfortunately, there's it just sucks because there's like a lot of people out there like are that want to be friends, but like they kind of can't because of their health issues, and it's really sad to see it evolve and like
Hmm.
they can. It's just really hard.
And I'll be honest, like that actually is where I'm at right now. Like I do, even though I've been diagnosed with MS for 5 years now, I still have a hard time dealing with the idea that, you know, spooty friends are going to have more of a difficult time hanging out with, you know, people who don't have issues like this, or, you know, people who don't, you know, deal with fatigue or whatever other issues that
Hmm.
we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, like, very often I actually do complain, like, to my boyfriend, you know, about not having friends. And even though I do have friends, just not in the capacity that I would like to because of, you know, some of my limitations.
Hmm.
But I do have to say that the online community, though, is there are so many people out there who are in the same boat as you and
Mm,
can't go out physically to places, but they're right there with you when it comes to like being online and doing things online, playing games or just chatting with you. Maybe I've been fortunate enough to meet plenty of those people, but still, like it still is a lonely road to sort of, come to terms with the idea that you may not have the capacity to completely be out there like other people your age. Do all the things that you really want to do. For me, hiking is one of those examples. Like I can't really uh be at the level that I want to be. I can't really like hike at the level that I would love to hike at and be
mhm,
outside in nature, even though I try and I often regret it in the end,
mhm.
but still, like I'll often push myself past the point of limitation to where I have to pause, or I can't do anything for the next few days, I should say,
Mhm.
because that's how much I put myself back. Like I spend like 3 days worth of spoons in one
Yeah.
one outdoor visit, but that's a whole nother story right there. But I feel like being online in the online community, like it at least counts for something.
I,
Even though we may be alone in our struggles, physically, we may not always have to feel lonely sometimes when it comes to the online world.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. I feel like it's actually toxic to be part of the chronic ill community because,
Mm.
yeah, okay, here we go. We're gonna explore this
Maybe I have
topic.
maybe I have like keep going.
Yeah, so like when you are a community, so like, so like one of the things they'll say, like let's say you're wanting to date someone, look at their friends, right? So like
Hmm.
you'll see their friends, like are they outgoing? Are they drug addicts? Are they, like what something like, you know, green flags or red flags, right? And so like let's
Hmm.
say, let's say there are a bunch of red flags, there are a bunch of douchebags or whatever, or bitches, whatever sex they are, okay? But yeah, but then they're that person is kind of representation of that friend group, right? So like, but if they're a negative influence on a person, then that negative influence will eventually come onto you. So now when you're on like
Oh, I
Instagram and
see
you're
what you're
following all these chronic ill people, you're not you are inviting negativity into your life. Yes, they may have the same symptoms as you, but they're also sick and tired. Not like the bad for you, but like they're fatigued or whatever. But it brings you down because when you have those good days, you go back into that world where they're not good, and you kind of go back down again. You fall down. But if you're surrounded by people that are like more outgoing and more wanting to do things, you're more likely to be in their circle because you're more outgoing and more up, like you're around good energy. And so like to me, I think it's toxic to be following a bunch of chronic ill community because it's so depressing. See, everyone goes there to like vent and all of that, and like I think it's really toxic, and it makes you feel even worse. And you don't want to be surrounded by people that it's kind of fucked up to like put it out, but like you don't want to be surrounded by people that are lower than you. You want to be surrounded by people that are higher than you, or like you'll never get better.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do see what you're saying. Maybe I should invite you to my friend circle because I feel like I feel so lifted up by a lot of them, like, and this also delves into why I like to teach art classes too, because when I'm teaching art classes, it's about the art. It's not always about your illness. We don't go there to talk about
Hmm.
our illness, although it may come up, of course, in conversation just by chance, but we don't completely talk about our illnesses in these spaces. So I wonder if it depends on the space you're in with regards to the chronic illness community
I
and
mean,
how
I don't
heavy that
really,
can be.
yeah, I don't really enter myself in any
So,
spaces. Like I'll like I'll enter some like support groups and such, and I feel I do it more for the like getting my name out there and being like a supporting person. But after like a session, I feel so drained and feel like bad about myself that I don't want to like. I can't be like a support person because I can't. For one, I can't help you in any way. I can't say the magic words or something. Yes, I can like listen, but like I'm. It's just draining
Mm-hmm.
to hear it. And then two, I'm a very like motivated and a go-getter person where I feel like I'm being dragged down by this other person because like I'm in a good mood and then they're not in a good mood and like and it drags me down and like
Oh,
they're not gonna like they're in a bad state where they're not gonna come to my level because I'm like I get more okay with my acceptance but like I feel like I'm being dragged down constantly and I want to push myself forward like a very motivated person. I'm very like
to be
business
better.
oriented. That I want to keep going, but like
Mm-hmm.
that's why I don't really like hang out with chronic ill people because most aren't in that way. They're like not. Maybe they're on the up and up or such, or sometimes they're just not in the same mindset that I am of having wanting like to like. I'll give an example with the podcasting. Like I have a high bar of what I want to do with the platform. So like now the quality of the camera is not great, but I have a good camera quality and microphone, and I edit really well and such. And like I want to be business oriented and make money off of this. And others they're like, oh, it's okay. I don't need to make money and such. I'll just put it on YouTube. I won't edit it, such like that. And I'm like, I want to like make this into a business, a job, and I want to like be extra motivated. I want to like capitalize on this. And people are just like, I'm okay with how things are going. Blah 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 blah. I'm wanting to push the envelope, and it's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think some have difficulty accepting themselves, and I generally do get that. But I just can't have it in my circle of I need someone that's next to me that wants to push me forward, and I want to push other people
Mm-hmm.
forward, but some don't want to be pushed forward, and I get it. But like I can't have you near me because I will, like I'm a very helpful person, and I will feel like I'm being anchored down. Like I'm willing to help you if you want to be lifted, but if you don't want to be lifted, I can't like be with you. I can't like support you. I
Mm-hmm.
can support you, but I can't like. You need to have like a certain level of self-esteem where I can't just like let's say you're ugly all the time, and I can't like keep saying you're beautiful all the time because then it's like for one I'm exhausted telling you that, and two like you have to like see that you're beautiful yourself. And so, like, when I give a compliment, it means really
Mm-hmm.
well because I really generally do it. I don't just say you're beautiful just because, like, let's say I'm with my girlfriend, I'm just doing it to get laid. Like, I want to just, man,
Now, I see what you're saying about other people not being quite at the same level as you.
mm-hmm,
That reminds me of something my mom would always tell us actually when we were growing up. She was always like, she would always tell us that she'll be there to help us no matter what it is. She's always going to be there for us,
yeah,
sisters, but we have to meet her. We have to meet her at 100%, and then she'll give her 100% to us. Or she worded it a lot more elegantly than that, but you get the idea, you
yeah,
know? Like, and of course that's my mom, I we are very close and we have a very good relationship,
yeah,
but I do see where you're going with that. Like, you have your goals in mind,
mm-hmm,
and you've already set your boundaries when it comes to like people who don't quite align with those with your vision and your goals, because you're on a mission and you need to achieve those goals for yourself. So yeah, I get that. At least I think I get it.
yeah. I mean, it helps with like my self-esteem and everything too. And I, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
like being fatigued, and I get it. And like I can, like I'm sorry, but like I don't know, it's like when you say it, kind of makes you like an asshole, but like at the same time, I'm also like monetized on YouTube, and I think it's a very hard thing to accomplish. And like yeah, I had some people like, hey, I
Uh-huh.
wanna like, how do I get to you? And I'll be like, I put all these X, Y, and Z, and then they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that, and I'm like, then you're not gonna make it because like you have to do X, Y, and Z. and it's like I get it. That's why I don't
It's
really
just the
like.
name of the game.
Yeah, and it's like people don't. I mean, I think even the chronic ill community. I think it's just everyone too. Like, there's average people in the average, like the chronic ill community is not a special group. Like there's still like the average person, but in the chronic ill community, there's always gonna be that 1% that do really well in whatever craft they are. I guess I'm in the 1%, and then there's people that are just average people that don't. Even if they didn't have the chronic ill community, I don't think they'll be doing anything much different, too, right? Like they'll just be average people doing average jobs, living average lives, and I don't want
Hmm.
that. I want to live a extraordinary life, and yet I have all these barriers that are against me. So like one is like I don't know if you can say it as a pro or con, but like me being a guy in a mental health space, that's a pro where like there's very few men that talk about this kind of thing. But it's also a con is like why would
Yep.
anyone listen to guys? Because most people don't listen to guys because they just dismiss their problems. So that's one. Like and then like women like to
Maybe because I'm not a guy, I don't really understand it.
hmm yeah, and then and then women have
Well, maybe
yeah, go.
I was just gonna say that maybe it's because I'm not a guy. I don't understand why anyone wouldn't want to listen to your side of the story. Because like what you said, men who are in the mental health space are so few and far between. So I think that's I don't know, in my opinion, I feel like that's great for where you're at and where you're what you're trying to do with your channel too.
Well, I
Um,
mean, the thing is that
anyway,
most guys don't say
continue.
anything because most people don't care at all. Like men
Mm,
are just expected to handle everything, and that's it. It could,
yeah.
it could be a society thing. Like I came up with this theory that I think men are more emotional than women. So,
Hmm.
so like, so we all know like women like to complain about like everything, right? Just bullshit things, right? So I think like from 0 to 90% women will complain, express their problems with everything, and then but I think the men, when they complain about the last 10%. So when they start complaining, then it's a big deal. And I think a lot of like women, especially, they don't know how to handle it because it's such a huge weight on their shoulders, and they just can't handle it. Because men are just expected to handle everything and like put on a brave face and keep hustling, and then sometimes we don't even get awarded properly. Like I'm expecting not to get awarded
Mm,
properly for all the work that I'm doing, and like I accepted that going in, where like like you can kind of see it with my posts. Like let's say, I don't know. Let's just say you had a scar from like I don't know a shark attack, right? And it was on like your arm, and you always hid it for all these years because you're afraid of it. Like you're afraid that people will judge you and whatever. Let's say we both have the same scar on our arms, and we're both afraid to share it. So one day we both share it, right? Like on your post, I'm sure you get hundreds of likes. You'll get like 100 comments saying how brave you are and all that stuff. And then I'll do the same thing now. Maybe get a good amount of likes, but I won't get as many comments as you are, just because I'm a guy.
hmm. I'd have to see it to believe it. I think I'd have to see it to believe it, but maybe it's because I'm not a guy, you know? I I guess it's hard for me to imagine that scenario because I do literally have like a dog bite scar that's been visible for like years, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always been something I showed off, and everybody always says, "Wow, that's so crazy." But nobody has ever called me brave for it. But it's just that shock value. That's all.
Yeah.
Um, but nobody's ever criticized me for that kind of thing. And just the fact, like I said before, the fact that I'm not a guy, I'm not, I don't deal with that world. Personally, as a woman, I feel like it's a great thing that there are more men like you speaking out against these gender issues that you deal with on a daily basis. Because I do see it like my boyfriend, my current boyfriend, he's like the same, like he's on the same level as you. Like he sees the inequality and he has experienced the inequality when it comes to like the way he has to deal with the world and the way
Hmm.
both of the ways that we deal with the world are different, you know?
It's the thing. The
And
hard, yeah, the hardest part about that is that it's a very hard catch-22 because it seems very attractive to like men, but I'm not gay, but it seems very attractive, but at the same time it's almost unattractive because men are just expected to handle everything and women don't want to like hear, if that makes sense. Because like you'll see like a lot of times where like men will like share the deepest darkest secrets with their like wives, for example, and then they end up getting a divorce. Or like they'll like express themselves, but then the women wouldn't like reciprocate the same way that he would have if she told him, and then like he would never open up again because like he got hurt from that. Or some situations where like the men will have to console the women, and it's like,
hmm
and then like that's what causes the men to not share it again because like you don't want to like you're going through your too, you don't want to like take all the energy to console them, and it's like it's generally really hard to catch 22. Like it seems great, but like also not. I think sometimes it's hurting me more than helping. If that makes sense, because I don't really have anyone women that are like wanting to be with me. I don't know. It could be a multitude of reasons, but I think one of it is I'm a very upfront person, and people say they want that, but I don't think they really want that, and I think that's hurting me more than helping me. But I also can't change who I am, and I'm
yeah.
stuck right now.
Yeah, so you're kind of stuck. I think it is catch 22. I think that's the right word.
Yeah, but
Um, but that's just how you are, right?
yeah, it sucks.
So it's kind of a yeah, so it's kind of it's a huge blow when people aren't accepting you for who you are because you can't be any other way. It's just you. Yeah, yeah.
Let's
It's
talk about your painting.
you know what's reminding
I
me.
think you're doing a fun.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, back to the painting.
Yeah.
I'm almost finished. So I decided to put the semblance of a little dot of a little flower on the top of Puffy's head because that's that was him. He had this flower shape right at the top of his head. He's a very unique pufferfish in that way. So I wanted to recreate that very loosely, of course. He's a green spotted puffer, so this is normal for him. Like he has dark spots everywhere. So I need to do that. I need to put that on here. But other than that, I'm just about finished. Do you have any questions about the painting itself?
No, I mean it looks really great. It looks 100 times better than I would have ever done. So you are you are definitely skilled at this craft and chatting, and it's almost like you didn't need me to ask you any questions. You could have talked for 2 hours, and I could have just been an audience member.
No, honestly, I'm really glad that you were here to guide the conversation because I have tried to make content on my own where I'm talking by myself to myself and
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I admire the people who do this on a regular basis, you know, they talk to themselves about whatever they're talking about and I can't I can't. I just can't do this. So I'm really happy that I had you to guide me with this conversation while I did this for myself.
Yeah,
I
well,
needed
while
this.
you were drawing, I was drawing you, and let me show it to you. I have an iPad here. Let me.
Aw.
Yeah, let's see. It's not as great as yours, but I think it'll get the point across. So let's see. Uh,
Sorry, Joe, I can barely hear you.
oh, sorry. So I was drawing
That's okay.
as you were drawing to show my artistic
No
expression.
way.
Yeah, well, it won't be a dick
No
pic. I'll tell you
way.
that. Yeah, it won't be a dick pic. Okay. I mean, I know we talked about it
Go
earlier,
for it. I want to
and
see.
I feel like I should have done it, or maybe it's a little one to show my artistic expression, but I gotta be professional on the YouTube. But let me see if I can. Like, no one can watch it, so no one can know that I'm a penis expert on here. But let's see. Uh, let's see if can you see. All right, hold on. Go lift it up. Go on.
I
Drawing of you.
Hey, no, you got the long hair just right.
Yeah, and then I have
Now that right there, is that a punching bag?
no, it's your you know you had the camera on top, so I draw like a tripod. So
Oh,
yeah, so like did you
there
see
we
the mouse?
go.
So this is your table, and then here's like the tripod, so you can see down. So here's like the camera icon. I don't know how to do it. I guess I got drawn a square, but and then here's you. Like obviously it's you smiling, and then
Signature smiley face
the
right
hair.
there.
Yeah, and you got the hair. Obviously it's you. Like I don't, it's a total, it's a exact a resemblance of you. So this should be in the Smithsonian.
Honestly, your line quality is great. I really feel like the your signature mark is the is your line quality.
Yeah, you gotta sign yours too. You gotta make it as you.
I do. Where can I sign it? I
Do you
don't
even have a
know.
signature? You don't have like a famous signature?
I do I do have a famous signature. I think I should do that with like I don't know, with like acrylic paint maybe. Hold on. I have to put like see, I always make it a thing to do the signature as the very, very last thing that I do.
Well, yeah.
So what I'm going to do here
Fine.
is I'm going to finish up just a few more lines, and then we'll call it a day. We'll call this finished.
Yeah, right. We like
Almost
filmed
done, I
like two
promise.
and a half hours of this.
Right?
I was not expecting this at all.
Well, hey, you have a lot of content.
No, I love all.
Who knows how long it'll take you to.
Before I take the mic
Yeah.
away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote, any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers? The mic is all yours.
Winning lottery numbers. Ooh, if you have winning lottery numbers, please give them to me because I have plans. If I become rich, I have plans, and they're all like plans to help other people. So give me some money, please. Um, if you, yeah, just add me on Instagram and keep up with me. That's all. No words of wisdom.
Okay.
Just bye.
Alright, so you can follow Hannah on her Instagram handle. It's on the screen below her face somewhere. Thank you, Hannah, for giving me your time and expertise and especially your expertise with this artwork. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.